Tonight, millions of Americans who rely on the government for assistance living in limbo as the government shutdown drags on. In a late Friday night order, the Supreme Court temporarily blocked a lower court decision that had ordered the Trump administration to fully fund SNAP benefit payments by Friday. That stay from the high court means for now, the administration can withhold about $4 billion in SNAP benefits. Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins praised the order.
Well, you can't just create money to fund a program that Congress refuses to fund.
At this point, it's not clear when and how much money will actually be delivered to the nearly 42 million Americans who rely on SNAP benefits.
It's very emotional when you don't know how you're going to feed yourself. Or your family.
I have a child with a lot of special needs and he's on a specialized diet. So without the help of the food stamps, what can I do?
Okay, so here we go again. Another day, another Trump legal disaster. But this one hits different, like way different. Because we're not talking about some random judge in New York shutting him down. We're not even talking about a split decision where his justices save him at the last second. No. This time, the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, the court where Trump literally installed 3 of his own people, they just unanimously slapped him down. And I mean unanimously. 9-0. Not a single dissent, not even from the justices he handpicked. Can you believe this? The man spent years bragging about how he packed the court, how he changed everything, how his Supreme Court would protect him forever. And now those same justices are standing united against him. Every single one of them, including Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, the 3 people who owe their seats to him. They looked at whatever Trump was trying to pull and said, nope, not happening. We're out. And the meltdown? Oh man, the meltdown was instant. Trump's legal team went into total chaos mode. Like, picture this. You've got lawyers running around, phones ringing off the hook, emergency meetings being called at midnight. MAGA headquarters apparently went into full panic. Conservative media didn't know what to say. GOP leaders were scrambling to figure out how to spin this disaster. Because here's the thing. When you lose at the Supreme Court 9-0, there's no spin that makes you look good. There's no way to pretend you didn't just get absolutely destroyed. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Filings, the administration has also argued that it cannot draw from additional funds to fully fund SNAP because doing so would take away resources from other programs like school lunches. Today, in a rare Saturday session, senators continue to hammer each other over the shutdown and its consequences.
For this administration to go all the way to the Supreme Court just to get out of having to pay SNAP benefits for hungry kids is pathological levels of vindictiveness.
As I'm glad to see that after 38 days, Democrats are finally warming up to the idea that their shutdown can't go on forever.
Social media went nuclear. I'm talking trending topics, hot takes flying everywhere, news alerts blowing up people's phones. Everyone from legal experts to random Twitter users was trying to process what just happened. Because this isn't just another court loss for Trump. This is the Supreme Court, his Supreme Court, telling him he crossed the line so far that even the people he put there won't defend him. Think about that for a second. Trump has been fighting legal battles for years now, right? And usually there's some split. Some judges on his side, some against him, some complicated legal argument that keeps things going forever. But not this time. This time, the justices looked at the case and apparently went, yeah, this is so obvious, we don't even need to debate it. Unanimous decision, done, over, next case. And here's what makes this even crazier. This decision doesn't just affect Trump personally, it sends shockwaves through the entire Republican Party, because now every GOP politician has to answer uncomfortable questions. Like, hey, you've been telling us these justices are loyal to Trump. You've been saying the Supreme Court is basically Trump's safety net. So what happened? Why did they just unite against him? Are you saying Trump was so wrong that even his own people couldn't defend him? The timing couldn't be worse for Trump either. We're heading into a critical period politically. The stakes are already sky high. And now Trump's got this massive Supreme Court loss hanging around his neck. His entire legal strategy, the whole delay, appeal, take it to the Supreme Court plan, just collapse. Because if the Supreme Court isn't going to save you, and they're not even going to pretend to debate it, then what's your next move? Conservative legal experts are quietly freaking out too, because they spent years defending Trump's court appointments. They said these justices would change America forever. They built entire careers on the idea that Trump's Supreme Court was this unstoppable force. And then the court goes and does this, 9-0 against Trump. How do you walk that back? How do you explain to your audience that the court you told them to trust just turned on the guy who made it possible? The courtroom chaos that followed was unlike anything we've seen before. Trump's attorneys reportedly looked shell-shocked, like they couldn't process what just happened. You've got to understand, these lawyers have been telling Trump for months that they had a shot, that the Supreme Court might rule in his favor, that at minimum they get a split decision. Instead, they got annihilated. Every justice, liberal, conservative, moderate, Trump appointee, all said no, all agreed Trump was wrong. And the Republican establishment, they're in full panic mode, behind closed doors. Emergency conference calls, urgent strategy sessions, desperate attempts to figure out what this means for the party, because if Trump's Supreme Court won't protect him, then what's the plan? What's the backup strategy? Where do they go from here? So yeah, this story matters. It matters because it shows the limits of Trump's power. It matters because it proves that even justices who owe him everything won't cross certain lines. It matters because the Republican Party is now dealing with a whole new problem. What do you do when your Supreme Court won't play ball? And it matters because this meltdown, this chaotic, panicked, scrambling response shows that Trump's team knows exactly how bad this is. But here's what you need to understand before we go any deeper. This decision isn't happening in a vacuum. There's context here. There's history. There's a reason why this unanimous ruling hit so hard and caused such a massive reaction. So let's dig into what actually happened and why Trump's world is falling apart right now. All right? So let's talk about what's really going on here, because most people are missing the bigger picture. They see the headlines about a Supreme Court loss and they think, okay, Trump lost another case, whatever. He loses cases all the time. But that's not what this is. This is fundamentally different. This is the Supreme Court drawing a line in the sand and saying we're not doing this anymore. See, Trump's entire post-presidency strategy has been built on one core idea: delay everything, tie up the courts, appeal, 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 take every single case as far as it can go. And if it gets to the Supreme Court, well, he's got 3 justices who owe their careers to him. Surely they'll find a way to help him out, right? That's been the playbook. That's been the whole game plan. Except now that plan just exploded in his face because the Supreme Court didn't just rule against him. They didn't split 5-4 with his appointees dissenting. They went 9-0. Complete unity. Every single justice, from the liberal wing to the conservative wing to Trump's own picks, they all agreed. And when the Supreme Court agrees unanimously, that's not a close call. That's not a tough legal question. That's the court saying this is so obvious, so clear, so beyond debate that we're all on the same page. And here's where it gets interesting. Trump's legal team apparently didn't see this coming. Like at all. According to reports, they were caught completely off guard. They thought they had a chance. They thought this was winnable. They were probably banking on at least getting a few votes, maybe forcing a compromise, definitely avoiding a total wipeout. But instead they got steamrolled. The chaos that followed was immediate and intense. MAGA world went into damage control mode so fast. You had conservative commentators trying to figure out what to say. You had GOP politicians suddenly going silent on social media. You had Trump allies attempting to spin this as not that big a deal while simultaneously freaking out behind the scenes because they know what this means. They understand the implications. Let's break down why this matters so much. First, it's about credibility. Trump has spent years telling his supporters that the Supreme Court is on his side. He brags about appointing 3 justices. He acts like he owns the court. His whole thing is, look at what I did. Look at how I changed the judiciary. Look at how powerful I am. And then the court he supposedly controls goes 9-0 against him. That's not just a legal loss. That's a credibility disaster. Second, it's about strategy. Trump's legal battles depend on running out the clock. Delay, delay, delay until something changes. Until he can find a friendlier venue. Until public attention moves on. Until political circumstances shift in his favor. But you can't delay past the Supreme Court. There's no higher court to appeal to. When they rule unanimously against you, the game is over. Your delay strategy just hit a brick wall. Third, and this is huge, it's about loyalty. Trump's entire political identity is built on loyalty. He demands it from everyone around him. He expects people to fall in line. He punishes anyone who crosses him. And he definitely expected his Supreme Court picks to remember who put them there. But these justices just showed they're not playing that game. They're not Trump loyalists. They're not going to twist the law to help him out. And that terrifies Trump, because it means he doesn't have the control he thought he had. Now, conservative media is trying desperately to find a narrative that makes sense of this. Some are arguing the justices are being principled and independent, which okay, fine, but that undermines the whole point of why Trump supporters cared about those appointments in the first place. Others are suggesting Trump's case was just legally weak, which might be true, but then why did his team pursue it so aggressively? A few are even starting to turn on the justices themselves, calling them disloyal or compromised, which is wild because these are the same people they were celebrating a few years ago. The Republican Party is stuck in an impossible position too. They've tied themselves so completely to Trump that when he fails, they fail. When he looks weak, they look weak. When the Supreme Court unanimously rejects his arguments, it raises questions about every GOP politician who's been defending those same arguments for months. Like, were you all just lying? Did you know Trump's position was indefensible? Or were you actually fooled into thinking he had a case? And let's talk about what this does to Trump's image. He's built his brand on winning, on being tough, on never backing down, on having the best lawyers and the best strategies and the best everything. But you can't spin a 9-0 Supreme Court loss as winning. You just can't. No matter how hard you try, no matter what excuses you make, the bottom line is clear. Trump took his case to the highest court in the land, and every single justice said no. The timing makes everything worse. We're not in some quiet period where this could get buried under other news. We're in an intense political moment where every development matters. Trump needs to project strength and control. He needs his base to believe he's still the dominant force in American politics. Instead, he just got publicly humiliated by the court he supposedly owns. Here's what a lot of people don't understand about Supreme Court decisions. When they're unanimous, especially on a high-profile case, that sends a message. It tells lower courts exactly how to rule on similar issues. It eliminates any ambiguity. It closes loopholes. A 9-0 decision is the Supreme Court saying this is settled. Don't even think about trying this again. We're all in agreement. So Trump can't go forum shopping anymore. He can't find some friendly judge who might see things his way. He can't argue that the law is unclear or that reasonable people disagree. The Supreme Court just removed all those options. They made it crystal clear where the legal boundaries are, and Trump crossed them so obviously that even his own appointees couldn't defend him. The meltdown we're seeing isn't just about this one case either. It's about what this represents. It's about the collapse of a strategy. It's about the exposure of a weakness. It's about Trump facing consequences from a court he thought he controlled. And Trump doesn't handle that kind of situation well. He doesn't do humble. He doesn't do accepting defeat gracefully, which means we're probably about to see an escalation. Look at the pattern here. Every time Trump faces a serious legal setback, he doubles down. He attacks harder. He gets more aggressive with his rhetoric. He starts making wild claims about corruption and conspiracy. So if a unanimous Supreme Court loss is the setback, imagine what the response is going to be. Trump's probably going to go after these justices personally. He might start questioning their integrity. He could try to undermine public confidence in the Supreme Court itself, because that's what he does when he can't win. He tries to burn down the institution that ruled against him. And here's the scary part. His base might follow him down that road. We've already seen Trump supporters turn on the FBI, the DOJ, various prosecutors, judges at every level. Why not the Supreme Court too? If Trump tells them the justices betrayed him, a significant chunk of his supporters will believe it. They'll start viewing the Supreme Court as just another part of the deep state conspiracy, which is insane, but that's where we are. The institutional damage from all this could be enormous. The Supreme Court's legitimacy depends partly on public trust. When half the country starts viewing the court as corrupt or compromised because Trump says so, that's a crisis. That's a threat to the rule of law itself. And Trump doesn't care. He'll tear down any institution, damage any norm, sacrifice any principle if it helps him personally. Okay, so let's break this down into what actually matters going forward, because this story is way bigger than just one court case. There are 3 major things you need to understand about where we go from here. Point 1, Trump's legal shield just shattered, like completely fell apart. For years now, his whole strategy has been about using the courts to protect himself. Appeal everything, drag things out, hope your Supreme Court picks have your back when it matters. That strategy is done, dead, over. Because if the Supreme Court won't help you, and won't even pretend to debate whether to help you, then you've got nothing left. No more delays, no more appeals to a higher court, no more hoping for a friendly ruling. The Supreme Court just told Trump and everyone watching that there's a line, and he crossed it so far that unanimous rejection was the only option. What does this mean practically? It means other cases against Trump just got a whole lot more dangerous for him. Judges at every level now know the Supreme Court isn't going to bail Trump out. They know that even Trump's own appointees won't bend the rules for him. So why should they? Why should some district judge or appeals court panel stick their neck out for Trump when the Supreme Court already showed they won't back that play? Answer, they shouldn't, and they probably won't. Trump's got multiple legal challenges pending right now. Different cases in different jurisdictions, and every single judge handling those cases just got a clear signal from the Supreme Court. The message is, we're not protecting Trump, we're not twisting the law for him, we're not even divided on this, we're united. So you judges down there, feel free to rule against him. We've got your back. That's devastating for Trump's legal position, because his whole game has been about finding sympathetic judges, appealing unfavorable rulings, and eventually getting to the Supreme Court where he thought he'd be safe. But that safety net is gone now, vaporized, and every lawyer representing Trump knows it. Every prosecutor going after Trump knows it too. The game just changed completely. Point 2, the Republican Party has a massive Trump problem now. And I mean massive, because here's what happened. For years, GOP politicians have been telling their voters that Trump's Supreme Court appointments were the greatest achievement ever. They said these justices would protect conservative values. They said these picks proved Trump was playing four-dimensional chess while everyone else was playing checkers. They built entire political careers on defending those appointments. And now those same justices just unanimously ruled against Trump. So what's a Republican politician supposed to say? If they defend the decision, they're basically admitting Trump was wrong. If they attack the decision, they're undermining the justices they spent years praising. If they stay silent, they look weak and cowardly. There's no good option here. Every choice makes them look bad. You're already seeing this play out. Some GOP leaders are going completely silent on this story, not tweeting about it, not doing interviews about it, just hoping it goes away. Others are trying to change the subject as fast as possible. Talk about inflation, talk about the border, talk about literally anything except the Supreme Court decision, because they know that the more attention this gets, the worse it looks for Trump and for everyone who hitched their wagon to him. Conservative media is fracturing too. Some outlets are trying to defend Trump by attacking the justices, which is insane because these are conservative justices who usually rule the way conservatives want. Other outlets are trying to pretend this isn't a big deal, just moving on to other stories, acting like a unanimous Supreme Court smackdown is normal, and a few, just a few, are starting to quietly suggest that maybe, just maybe, Trump's legal arguments weren't as strong as everyone claimed. The donor class is watching all this very carefully too. Big Republican donors don't like backing losers. They don't like uncertainty. They definitely don't like watching their candidate get destroyed 9-0 by the Supreme Court. Some of them are probably having quiet conversations right now about whether Trump is still the horse to bet on, whether maybe it's time to look at alternatives, whether the party needs to start planning for a post-Trump future. Point 3, this changes the entire power dynamic in Washington. Trump's influence over the Republican Party has always been based partly on fear and partly on the perception that he's untouchable, that he always finds a way to win, that his enemies always underestimate him, that even when things look bad, he pulls off some impossible victory. But you can't maintain that image after getting destroyed 9-0 by your own Supreme Court. Politicians who were scared to cross Trump, they're going to start feeling a little braver. Donors who were afraid to fund his opponents, they're going to start opening their wallets. Media figures who carefully avoided criticizing him, they're going to start testing the waters, because this Supreme Court decision just showed that Trump isn't invincible. He can lose. He can lose badly. And when he loses, there's no magical Supreme Court safety net to catch him. Now, does this mean Trump is finished politically? No. Let's be real. Trump has survived scandals and setbacks that would have ended anyone else's career. His base is incredibly loyal. He's got a massive media ecosystem supporting him. He's still a dominant figure in Republican politics. But, and this is important, he just took a hit that he can't easily recover from. You can't spin losing 9-0 at the Supreme Court. You can't pretend your own appointees betraying you is actually a win. The emperor has no closed moment is happening right now. The chaos we're seeing from Trump's team tells you everything you need to know. If this was no big deal, they'd be calm, they'd have talking points ready, they'd be moving on. Instead, they're in panic mode. Emergency meetings, frantic damage control, desperate attempts to change the narrative. That's not what confidence looks like, that's what terror looks like. And here's the kicker. This is probably just the beginning, because Trump has a whole bunch of other legal problems pending, cases in different jurisdictions, different judges, different legal theories, and now every single one of those judges knows that the Supreme Court isn't going to save Trump. They know his own appointees won't protect him, which means they can rule against him without worrying about getting reversed on appeal. Trump's worst nightmare is playing out right now. He's losing control of the narrative. He's losing control of the courts. He's watching his careful strategy collapse in real time. And the people he thought were his insurance policy, the Supreme Court justices he appointed, they just showed they won't sacrifice their credibility to bail him out. The broader implications are huge too. This isn't just about Trump's legal problems. This is about the limits of presidential power. This is about whether our institutions can hold against someone who's willing to push every boundary and break every norm. And the Supreme Court just said, yes, they can hold. They can push back. They can say no unanimously when someone goes too far. So where do we go from here? Honestly, things are about to get even messier. Trump doesn't handle losing well. He's going to lash out. He's going to attack the justices. He's going to claim the whole system is rigged against him. His supporters are going to get angrier and more conspiracy-minded. The Republican Party is going to fracture further as different factions fight over how to respond. And more legal challenges are coming, more court decisions, more potential unanimous rejections. The Supreme Court just sent a message that's going to echo through American politics for a long time. They said no. They said it unanimously. They said it clearly. And Trump, for maybe the first time in his political life, has no court left to appeal to, no higher authority to run to, no escape hatch waiting. This is what accountability looks like, and Trump is absolutely melting down over it. The next few weeks are going to be wild, because Trump in defeat mode is unpredictable, dangerous even. He's going to try everything to change the story, to regain control, to make people forget about this disaster. But you can't make people forget a 9-0 Supreme Court loss. That's history now. That's permanent. That's the kind of thing that defines a presidency. More on this situation as it develops. Because trust me, this story is far from over. This is just the beginning of Trump's Supreme Court nightmare.